Hello, and welcome to OLA 2022. Thank you for joining us for our session, Programming and Publicity in Rural Libraries.
My name is Gail Ayler. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern Oklahoma Library System. I've been with the system for 11 years, first as the PR marketing member, and then I became the Executive Director 3 years ago.
And I am Allison Blankenship, and I have been with the library system since 2009. I started out as the branch manager in one of our locations. I've also done some publicity for the system, and for the past decade, I have been in this current position.
So we presented this program originally at conference in 2017, and we have implemented a lot of new things at our system since then that we're really excited to share with you today. Also, the way we create and share marketing content has changed in a way that has made life so much easier, especially if you have limited or no staff or time to create content. The Southern Oklahoma Library System is a rural system serving South Central Oklahoma. We have 8 libraries across 5 counties. In addition to the communities that the SOLS libraries serve, we have 28 smaller communities and townships in our area that do not currently have direct access to a library. Additionally, as I'm sure most of you know from experience, many of our patrons struggle with lack of access to services, be it medical, educational, workforce development, internet connectivity, or any number of things. So in the recent years, our staff has made it their mission to bridge these gaps by providing patrons with resources as best they can. SOLS epitomizes the phrase doing more with less. We have 13 full-time staff and 4 part-timers that run our 8 libraries. Our library in Ardmore additionally serves as our business center where most of our staff is located. People working in Ardmore provide marketing, reference, use service, cataloging, business management for the entire system. Across our counties, we serve more than 97,000 citizens, over 3,371 square miles. Until recently, our branches were staffed by just 1 person, but we've been very fortunate to hire 3 part-time people to travel between our branches to provide assistance. And because of COVID, many of our patrons, schools, and organizations have no longer been able to visit the library due to lack of funding or resources. So our part-time people are allowing our branch managers to provide outreach services at these places. So I'm very excited to share with you. Today's presentation will cover 3 different areas: creative programming ideas, programming resources, and how to create content and publicize all of the amazing things that your library is offering. We hope you'll leave today's presentation with some new ideas and resources to take back to your libraries.
So why is programming important? When we both started at the library, our system did the minimal amount of programming that was required. We had weekly story times and we did summer reading programs, and we might have done book clubs here or there. But for the most part, I mean, that was really it. But as social media came around and we started following different systems and libraries on social media, we saw that we were really missing out on a great opportunity. And we both felt that in order to show our library's value, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you know, having broader services is really a way to do that. So in the past 10 years, we have increased our programming exponentially, and there are very few things that we won't try if we see a need. And if you guys came to our session in 2017, you left with a handout like this. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it was about this thick. And it's flyers of all the programs that we had, because we're very visual, as you'll see here in a little bit. We like to show all the things. This year, these are the programs that we did. So there will not be a handout at conference, but if you are interested in this, just send me an email and I've uploaded it, and I'm happy to just send you all of the programming flyers that we have done, because even we were amazed at what we had done, in all honesty. So why is it important? First, it gives people an experience. So providing programs allows like-minded individuals to get together and build relationships over similar interests. It attracts non-library users. So we're going to get more into publicity later in the presentation, But I wanted to mention now that we publicize all of our programs through press releases in all of our local newspapers. And we also send out radio PSAs for the local radio stations. So this is how we reach people who don't normally come into the library or follow us on social media. And then once we get them in for our programs, it allows us to share our other services, gets them to sign up for library cards, and become regular library users. And I would also like to say that when we send newspapers and radios these press releases, it also helps us build relationships with them. So then we have people from the newspapers that come to our programs and they take photos and they share things on their own. And it also has gotten us the attention of our local news media. And yesterday, actually, we had a vaccine clinic, and Channel 10 News reached out, and they reached out to us as opposed to us reaching out to them. So getting out there, that's just a good way, which we'll get into in detail in a little bit. So it also makes the library a community hub, which, as you will see, is very important to us. We increasingly hear about libraries being third spaces in their communities. There are places where people can gather and just be. Nothing is expected of them. And spaces like this are becoming increasingly rare in our world. So the ability to capitalize on this is important. It also helps to show the library's value. Hosting programs on a variety of topics shows your community that you are a valuable resource and that libraries are more than just books, which, you know, if you guys have the same experience as we do, people are shocked by all the things that we provide all the time. And it also brings people together. So many of our programs, crafts, cooking classes, etc., have become events where multiple friends and family members all sign up for the class, they get together and they attend. And in most of our communities, you know, we don't have a lot of outlets for entertainment. We don't have movie theaters. We don't have things like that. So library programs become a place for people to get out of their homes and do something fun. And it also increases statistics. So whether you like statistics or hate them, we all know that they are vital to proving a library's worth. And programming is a great way to immediately boost stats for your library. This is important for your annual reports you are doing. This is important if you are advocating to legislators. And this is even important in your own community, especially, you know, if you might be fighting for a budget with some other community entity, you know, why the library is valuable.
So now that we've talked about why programming is important, we want to talk to you about tips for creating successful programs in your own communities. First is to be open to new ideas. We look at all 8 of our communities, and we invite you to do that with your community and see what programming or services your library can provide to meet your community needs. We all know that the library's purpose is changing. In our system, we want our libraries to be community hubs, if you will. That means that in addition to providing educational programs and resources, we also want to provide a space where people can socialize with others in the community who have similar interests. The second thing to do is to tap into your biggest resource. Most people working in rural libraries come from career areas outside of libraries. In our system, particularly, we have staff who are professional artists. We have staff who've been former teachers, journalists, chefs, bartenders, community service associates. So we have a lot of staff members who have an array of hobbies, and we found out what those are and can see if there's a potential to create a library program around that.
And now we also understand that many of you are the sole staff member at your library and you're already overwhelmed. So if that is the case, tap into your patron skills and interests. One example of this is I used to do craft class, which you'll hear about more in a minute, every month at all 8 of our libraries. It was a good way for me to get out, make sure I was visiting all of the libraries. But a couple of years ago, I just really couldn't handle going out and doing 8 programs a month anymore. So I started doing them every other month. And so, but a lot of our branches, they still wanted to continue these monthly classes. So on the months that I don't go out and do a class, crafty patrons will get together, come up with an idea, and they will volunteer to teach one. We'll also talk here in a little bit about potential programming partnerships that maybe you hadn't thought of that have worked for us. And then lastly, we want you to think outside of the library. So as we stated earlier, we're a multi-county library system. And while we have 8 library locations, there are 28 communities out there that don't have direct access to a library. And in these communities, you know, we have people that don't have the means to come to another town for library access. So this means that we take our programs to them. Our staff, and Gail and I have done a lot of this, we have provided programs at schools, nursing and retirement homes, local food banks, community centers and city halls, daycares, and even apartment complexes. There, we will go almost anywhere. And also this past year, we've tried to be more active in community events. So we have participated in a lot of local parades, like homecoming parades. We participated in a lot of Christmas parades. We decorated our van, which was a hoot. And then, you know, local festivals, carnivals, and then I'm sure your communities are just like ours. We have local days. So like in Hilton, we have oil field days. In Marietta, we have frontier days. We participate and have booths in those festivals as well. And if you don't already provide programming in your community, or you know it's limited, you know, just start small. We don't want to overwhelm you, and different programs work for different areas. So what works for us might not exactly translate to your community. And we just want to get your creative juices flowing and tell you that if we can do it, we assure that you can do it. So now we're going to talk to you about some creative examples that we have done. We have done all of these in the past year. Now, some of these pictures might be older than that. And we're very visual. So as we describe these, we're just going to show you pictures as we go through. So our resident artist has provided several teen art classes. These were wildly popular, and they have helped us reach an audience that is sometimes elusive to us. And I would also like to say he has recently done a photo restoring program using GIMP. So it's a free resource, and he's showing people how to restore old family photos. And it's also been really successful. So if you're interested in that, we can get you more information. Our previous marketing person was an anesthetician. And so she provided skincare classes, and she taught people how to create face masks and scrubs using items that they have in their kitchen. And then she would also provide them with information on great skincare products that were affordable. So while she was professionally trained, you can also get on Pinterest and find great recipes for at-home skincare. We've done that before as well. And then we also have a staff member who was a member of a local cosplay organization, and they would have superhero programs for kids and teens. And we did that at most of our libraries. They were highly successful. You know, kids love superheroes. So that was a great option for us. We also had both our staff and then OSU Extension staff provide kids cooking classes. Now, these programs always tend to fill up just a day or two after we start publicizing them. So if you learn nothing else, you know, if you have a staff member that is interested in cooking, definitely look into doing this program. It's great. You know, it's just like kids just love doing it. And if you don't have access to like an electric skillet or a kitchen or whatever you need, consider doing a microwave mug cooking class. It's really easy. It's one serving. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. There are tons of ideas, and you know, you can get a mug at Dollar Tree for $1 and then they take it home. We also have a staff member that purchased a 3D printer with his book sale money, and he provides classes at our library branches, but also in our local schools. And then, as I said earlier, I have done craft classes at our libraries for years. So I used to use repurposed materials such as tin cans, and then, you know, we have no shortage of books to repurpose. So that bottom picture down there, that is a book wreath class that we did. And as you can see, it was very well attended, you know, no money spent, great way for people to get together. And then in the past few years, I have gotten permission to kind of upgrade our program, our craft classes, if you will. And I just charge for supplies. So that top picture up there, that's going to be a doormat class that we did. So I got doormats at IKEA. They were just $5. And so that was the cost of the class, was the $5 for the doormats. It didn't deter people. They were excited because they're getting a good quality thing that they can actually use. So I kind of like to alternate and do something free or do something that's low cost, like painting a pillow cover or a tea towel, something like that.
So another really popular program for our system is visits from Santa and Mrs. Claus each year. Our circulation manager, that's Rudy. He loves to play Santa. And then that's Stephanie, our youth services person. They normally have a special story time and do pictures with Santa, but the past year, because of COVID and everything, we did a drive-by Santa. And most of our libraries are located on main streets in their communities. So the drive-by event ended up being even more popular than our previous story times. We've also done the hay bale gardening in a couple of our libraries. Here's a picture here. This is another great way to get kids involved in the library. One of our branches had the garden behind the library, and they would come and plant and tend to the garden. And then one of our branch managers is very interested in sewing. One year, her library sewing group created something like, I want to say 100 blankets for local foundations. She does classes for both kids and adults, and typically will have a series of classes where the projects become progressively more difficult.
And then we recently received a grant to provide ancestry database remotely to our patrons. And so, we kind of felt that if we're going to provide this service, it's important to provide classes to teach our patrons how to use the database. And so one of our branch managers who has an interest in genealogy was more than willing to take that on. And pre-COVID, she did a lot of programs. When COVID hit, those programs moved virtual and she created online tutorials. And then as we have started to open back up, she's starting to do those classes again. And then two of our branch managers are interested in gaming, specifically Magic the Gathering, which neither one of us really know anything about. But because we are always open to new ideas, and we'll let anybody try anything once, we were cautiously optimistic when the branch managers asked to try this out. And we were so happy that we took the chance. Because apparently this is a picture of our Davis library, and people have said that we are the only place that they can go between Oklahoma City and Dallas to play. And as you can see, there are a good number of people interested. And this, we currently provide these weekly, they're after hours. So sometimes the branch has a substitute working for them and they do programs during hours. And then sometimes they do them after hours just because people work, that's what works best for them. So just kind of feeling out your community and the times that work best for them.
So before COVID, we did minimal virtual programming, I'll admit, but as soon as our libraries closed in March of 2020, the staff all we met came together and they all had great ideas for creating virtual content. Some of them included composting, like this photo, Tai Chi. This is our branch manager in Davis, Jonathan, and he offers this twice a week in person, but under this circumstance, he did virtual. Bullet journaling is our librarian in Sulphur. And then Allison made this dry shampoo, which was very popular because people couldn't get dry shampoo.
Who knew?
And believe it or not, this had virtual views of 2,000 people.
And I will have you know, I still use this dry shampoo that I made to this day, 2 years later.
So you might want to get the recipe.
Yeah, it's really easy.
We also had virtual cooking classes and tutorials on how to use our different library services during the time. And so we've kind of kept this going even though we're open now.
So we had mentioned earlier about getting out into the community and that we have made this a point to have a presence. And we feel that this has been even more vital since COVID. They might not have the needs to get to the library, as we've said, or maybe you've fallen off their radar because, they weren't getting out for a while. And so, they've just kind of forgotten. And whatever the case may be, we want to let citizens know that we are here. And once again, we provide so much more than just books. So this first picture was a microwave cooking class that we both did for senior citizens at a local community center. So this was a great class because most of them are cooking for one. And so, they don't want to make like a big meal or something. So in addition to like savory options such as omelets and soups and things like that, we also taught them how to make like brownies and cookies that are enough for just one serving, which they loved. So the second is a Plants and Pollinators Festival in Atoka, which was a new festival this past year. They're trying to get people out and more active. So we took a hotspot and we signed people up for library cards. We gave them publicity, information of what we have going on in the library. And we also provided them with a pot to decorate. And then we let them plant a flower in the pot. And then because the festival was just a half a block away from the library, we also opened up our meeting room because they had presentations throughout the day to go along with the festival. So that was kind of a double whammy. And then the last picture is our branch manager, Jonathan, which you saw a picture of him before, but this is him this year teaching a 3D printing class at, I believe it's Stringtown Public Schools. And so because we've hired part-time help, they're more free, like our branch managers are more free to take their talents out in the community at much more flexible times. And so they're not confined to having to work around their library hours. And Jonathan, he has taken full advantage of this. He has scheduled 3D printing programs in schools. He just got done doing one at our Wilson Library this week. They had 16 teens attend, which we're just over the moon about. So he does this throughout the service area.
So we understand that most of you or many of you don't have the luxury of having multiple staff members and you already feel stretched thin. So the idea of adding one more thing to your plate may seem daunting, but I want to give you some ideas of people who may be able to help you create unique programs. First, if you have local friends groups or loyal library patrons that come all the time, you can tap into their talents and see if they'd be willing to volunteer to host a program. Allison's mom is a high school science teacher, and when the eclipse happened in 2017, she came and did a big speech at the library and told people about the eclipse. And so you can just do those kinds of things and they work really well. I highly recommend you reach out to your county extension office and see what programming and services they provide. The ones in our service area are amazing and help us all the time. Check out your local interest groups. Maybe the Historical Society could do a genealogy class. We have a group called Southern Oklahoma Area Partners, or they call it SOAP, and it's strictly nonprofit people in the area, and it's a great way to build relationships and collaborate on different projects. I would reach out to local professionals for Financial Literacy Week. Consider reaching out to someone at your local bank or financial investors and have them come do a class about investing, or someone from the Literacy Council could teach your GED classes or literacy classes. So there's a lot of things you can do to find local people to help. And just look for things that particularly work in your community and determine who would be best to help make these meet these needs. As with anything pertaining to public things, I'm going to let Allison take this one.
Okay, so unexpected things sometimes happen, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. So here are some possible obstacles based on our experiences and what we have learned from them. So the first is that people show up, but they don't sign up. Now, fortunately for us, this isn't a common occurrence. It might be for you. And it's really only an issue if we're doing a craft or a project where there's a set number of supplies. So if you don't already, make sure that you have a sign-up sheet for these type of programs. And then when you're creating publicity, we always say, seating is limited. So call, the phone and add the phone number to sign up today. But as we all know with signage, people don't always read it. So, sometimes these things still happen. So when we do craft classes and things like that, I always try to have at least like 5 extra. That's typically good enough. But we had this happen on a large scale. Our last summer reading program kickoff party, we had 30 signed up and we had about 100 show up. We think that parents were like, just get the kids out, they were ready to do something. So To accommodate them, our youth services person enlisted parents to help create crafts. So the thing about this, which I'm terrible about, in these situations, don't feel like you have to take everything on yourself, enlist help, things like that. Because if you do that, you're going to end up stressing yourself out. And even if the program is successful, you're not going to want to do it again because you're just going to have this, horrible flashback. So sometimes the opposite happens and you have people sign up, but they don't show up. So we always try to call our patrons on the day of the program, but even if you do, things happen. People forget, they get sick, and especially in a time of COVID, you just, things just happen. And I just finished a book that I have here. It's called New Routes to Library Success, and I really highly recommend it. There are different chapters. They all have great ideas. But in one of the chapters, the author talks about being able to process failure, learning from it, and trying again. So when you look at why a program wasn't well attended, before you just decide to scrap that program altogether, look at, was there a conflicting event going on? Did weather happen? Was everyone sick? Or, were they scared of getting out? If you really think that the program is needed and has the potential for success, then, pivot and brainstorm different avenues to make this program successful. And then sometimes attendees aren't age appropriate. This happens to me. I'm speaking about craft classes a lot because this is what I know the most about. But mine are for adults. And I typically always try to put an age limit if, it's a little too technical, but sometimes that just doesn't work. Fortunately, if a child attends, the parent is typically always with them. But if it's too hard, I always kind of give them a heads up that I don't really know that they can handle it. But if they still are determined to do it, I just let them try and see how it goes. Now, if it's the opposite and you have an incident where an adult shows up alone for a children's program, depending on whether, it was an accident, they didn't know it was an age or, things like that, you might have to handle it differently. That's a completely different situation. What to do if the program or project is harder than you intended. So this can sometimes happen. A while ago, we had people in the community that they wanted to learn how to crochet and knit. And so none of us have those skills. So we went out into the community and we found someone to do it. And we learned really fast that that is something that you either take to or you don't. And then I have also had the experiences, and sometimes like in my makerspace classes, like snap circuits, you can advertise that it's for a certain age and you can be in different locations and have the same age group of kids and they just process and learn things differently. And it used to stress me out. It used to bother me. I felt like I was a bad teacher or something, but I have learned that as long as they're having fun and they're not breaking, your makerspace equipment or whatever, just go with the flow. They're probably learning something and they're in the library and they're having a good time. And then what to do when you are just completely out of ideas. And I just feel like for the past 2 years, we've just been living in a constant state of stress and everybody's just a little bit burnt out. And so it's hard to be creative when, you're just trying to survive day to day. So in our system, we have monthly branch meetings via Zoom with all of our branch managers. And we go around in a circle and we have them tell what is happening in their branches. And this is a great way for them to brainstorm ideas across the system. They're not having to reinvent the wheel with programs. And it allows them to have that dialogue. And then Pinterest, always a good idea. I mean, it was a good idea the last time we did this program and it still is now. And then we are not on TikTok, but I know of a lot of people. I mean, I know there's all kinds of stuff on there, but like crafts, programs, library stuff, things like that, they're also very popular on TikTok. So that's another option. And then I also want to do a plug for OLA right now. Especially if you are the sole person in your library, join different divisions and roundtables in OLA that, they meet your interests, because you will get inspiration. You will meet people that you can reach out to. Like Gail and I both do it all the time with librarians across the state. If there is there's an issue or we need ideas, it's just really great. And the main thing that we want for you to take from this slide is that things are always going to happen that you couldn't possibly have imagined, it's just the way it works. And you might have a highly successful program one day, and then the next time you schedule it, no one shows up, or, vice versa. But don't get discouraged. You were all creative and you have a passion for your libraries, because that is why you were here.
So now that you've come up with all the great programming ideas, and we want to talk to you about how we effectively publicize them. So the first thing is about free resources that you can use to create publicity for your programs. And the one that we use in our system, that people are most familiar with, is Canva. Now, Canva is a free tool that provides a variety of pre-formatted promotional materials. So you just plug in your information and it kind of designs it for you. Also, if you're a 501c3 like we are, like nonprofit, you get the pro account free, which is amazing. One of the things we most appreciate about the pro account is the ability to resize publicity easily for different formats. And this means we don't have to go redo and create a flyer and a bookmark and a social media. You can just create one thing and it sizes it for you.
It's fantastic.
It is. It's really good.
It's great.
Excuse me. So here are some other options that were recommended to us to mention in this presentation, but we're not necessarily familiar with them. And one of them is BizMe. From a glance, appears to be a lot like Canva. And maybe it has more options. I'm not really sure, but it's another thing you can look for or choose from. And if you're more graphic design savvy, you might check out these options. We don't use them because we love the fact that Canva does everything by just plugging in the information, inserting our photos, and we're good to go. We can create a flyer, honestly, in under about 5 minutes, when you say Allison, which is great for our PR person because she's doing the work for all 8 library branches, which is a lifesaver. So these are the recommended resources. And if y'all think of something, let us know. Maybe we'll want to do it.
We always like to share information.
Yes, we do. So the next slide is where to publicize your programs. Our answer is everywhere, honestly. As we stated earlier, we send press releases to all of our programs to the local newspapers. We send them to the radio stations and even the TV stations, and they come, like Allison said, and next thing you know, we're on the TV slot. For in-house publicity, we create flyers and bookmarks. The bookmarks are great because people take them home. We put them in their books when they check out, and they can put them somewhere and remember the date and the time of event. We also have mailing lists for all of our branches for bigger programs, and we send postcards out for those, like Let's Talk About It or some of our bigger book club programs. We don't do this for every program because, of course, it's expensive, but we do have the availability. Library newsletters are also a good way to publicize programs and events. Personally, for our library system, it's not the best method for us. We've tried it, but it's definitely worth looking into. I would publicize with community partners. Several of our community chamber of commerce will allow us to put information in their monthly newsletters. They're always willing to share it on their website as well. So take program flyers to different places in the community, and you can get broader audiences, churches, community centers, all kinds of places. In addition to promoting the events on the library website, if you have a login page on your public computer, you can put a space up on your login page on the public computers. And another good idea is to add the promotions to your library receipts. And honestly, the most effective form of promotion for us is on social media. That's where we've had our biggest success. Every person that comes in the library, we encourage to follow us on social media. And then we've saved this one last because Allison's going to tell you a little bit more in depth about our social media.
So our system, and I'm going to try not to click on things as I do this. So we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And by far our most popular outlet is Facebook. One of the great things about Facebook is the ability to create events. And then once somebody says they're interested in your events, it sends them a reminder, which could be helpful, could be annoying, as I'm sure some of you, when you've said you're interested in events, but it kind of saves you from having to call them because they're being reminded. We also have Instagram and Twitter. These aren't as popular, but they're slowly but surely gaining momentum. And then when COVID hit and we started doing virtual programming, we created a YouTube account. So all of our videos and tutorials are available on YouTube. We don't have a lot of subscribers on YouTube, but it's just great that we can share the YouTube link to Facebook and other social media outlets. It just makes it really easy. And then if you haven't already, we recommend that you find a social media scheduling platform. So if you have been doing publicity for a while, you will remember that you had to, make notes of when you needed to go in and post your events or do things like that. But now there are all these platforms that you can just take a day or a couple of hours, add all your events to that, and then schedule when they go out, which, oh my gosh, amazing. So Facebook offers an option to do that, and it will cross post to Instagram, but you can't schedule events to be posted. Now you can create drafts of events and then post them later, but you're going to have to remember to go and make those events active. But our PR person uses Later and Buffer to schedule our social media post. And so the reason that she uses two platforms is because if we want to keep things free, which we do, we're limited to the number of posts we can schedule. And so when you have 8 libraries, it can sometimes become a juggling act. So Later will let you schedule 30 posts per platform, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, per month. But once you reach those 30 posts for the month, you're done until the next month. So then she also supplements that with Buffer. So with Buffer, you are limited to scheduling 10 posts per platform at a time. But then with those, once the posts go live, you can add more. So you have a little bit more flexibility, but it's less posts that you can go in there. I also noticed that Canva has an option for doing this. I'm not really familiar with it. And then I know Hootsuite is really popular. So go in, see what works best for you. And, I really recommend taking advantage of that.
So all of you know that funding is always an issue when it comes to libraries. So we wanted to share with you some of the things we do for our library system to generate revenue for programs and services. The first is to send out donation letters. We actually do this every year in all of our communities to raise money for our summer reading programs, and it's been very successful. I will tell you that last year we received more donations than we ever have before. Even with all the negative effects of COVID, one of the positives that we think's happened with our library system is it's made people realize and become more aware of all the things we have done and how valuable we are to our communities. So that campaign was very successful. The second is to charge late fees for hot ticket items. While we pride ourselves in being mostly fine-free, we do charge late fees for DVDs in our hotspots. We allow people to check out a DVD for 1 week for free, but after that, we charge $1 a day per movie up to 5 days. So the maximum late fee is not really big, but it allows us to get some money. It's $5. And then the hotspots can be checked out free for a week as well. And then we charge $5 a day late fee up to the cost of the device. So this ensures that people bring back the items that are so popular in the library in a timely manner, but then it does generate some revenue for us when they're overdue. And I'm sure most of you provide copies and faxing, but if you don't, you should look into it. We've also started providing notary services and at most of our libraries. And our Ardmore location is now a passport acceptance facility, which is generating a lot of money. That would be a whole nother session. If you're interested in passports, let us know and we can get you the information you need. And finally, hosting book sales still works for all of our communities. It may not be fun and it seems like a lot of work just thinking about it, but they're been very successful. Our friends groups have helped do some of these in our library branches, and we're funding things such as gaming consoles, 3D printers have been bought with the money, TVs, supplies with programs. So it's something to think about. People still like to come buy used books.
I mean, and we're buying these at 25. I mean, we're selling the books for 25 cents. So, I mean, and we're being able to buy that. So, it really is successful. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to our presentation. If you have any questions, please send either one of us an email. If you want a copy of our program flyers of what we're doing in our system, if you'll send me, Allison, an email, I'll get that to you. And then I just want to thank you so much for joining OLA 2022. And please remember to fill out a session evaluation in the conference app or on the OLA conference website. And we hope that you will join us, I'm sorry, for many more sessions.